we train them up. So, you know, we have to have confidence in our own training and then confidence in our staff's experience that they will know when and when not to. And I must say, our complaints haven't risen since we changed the business model, and certainly our staff are much happier. We know that I know it through informal contact with the staff, but I also know it through our employee surveys that our morale has gone up. So it's been a great thing from that point of view.
Very good.
Richard Morrow Coolabridge from the Australian Passport Office, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Very interested in your client satisfaction survey. One, why you did it, in terms of, was it self-driven or did you find there were some issues that you were trying to address? Two, what did you implement as a result? And three, have you followed up with another one, or do you plan to?
Yeah, this is about the fourth or fifth one we've done over the last 5 or 6 years. And the last couple have either been based on a jurisdiction, civil law or family law, or our criminal clients. This was based on our information advice across all areas. But I think increasingly, you know, we as service providers really have to be doing things like this. And we have made good change, you know, whether it's as simple as, you know, sorting out what people want in a reception area. We really took on board the feedback we got the year before last about our internet. And I was just really pleased to hear, and I was just actually looking at that just then, where, you know, Jo Hughes talked about her Data BC and how they moved from a communication site to a citizen-centric site. Well, that's exactly what our new intranet is about. We launch it, I think, we're aiming sort of early September, but it's, you know, as good as done. And it's this, I think, a magnificent site because it's been loaded with user testing. Right from the beginning, we involved clients in the user testing process, and experts and private practitioners, and but it's no longer, is it just, you know, the communications site that it previously was. So I think it also takes up that empowerment issue too, that it's, and that's just one really practical example that we seriously gained from having a client satisfaction survey. We also picked up really important things around diversity of clients and emerging communities and culturally and linguistically diverse communities, and worked really closely with people like Julia Harrickson around diversity, and I think we did, we gained a lot of need for improvement in that area, and on the strength of that, we've just recently appointed a person sort of in charge of communities. So, you know, look, I could name 3 or 4 other examples where we've actually gained significantly, but it's just really good for staff to see. Often overall they're giving fantastic service, but also there's always that 15-20% of clients that are saying, I had no idea what went on then. And these are, you know, missionary-like legal aid lawyers, as we talked yesterday, without being dramatic, but a lot of them are incredibly passionate with the way they work. And it was really important for them to see that, in fact, at times their language is still unobtainable, and they've got to work it through, and they've got to plain English, and they've got to get their letters right. And so we've actually gained a lot from our client satisfaction surveys.
I'm Julia Harrickson, and I was particularly going to ask Neil, because I know Richard's doing good things. Specifically, we've been doing some work with culturally diverse communities, and this area of ADR, mediation, and in light of the conversation we're having around client-centric work, can you talk about any experiences or any work you've had that you've been doing in relation to particular communities that bring their own mediation style with them, particularly, for example, refugees from from Africa who have a system that they're used to, and the models that we have don't suit them or aren't a good fit. Thank you.
There's two examples with two different communities in two quite different settings. The first is we did a project with the Sudanese community in Dandenong, which is, I think, probably like a Parramatta. It's a big suburb out of, about an hour's drive out of Melbourne. Pretty generally sort of reasonably low income area and a lot of kind of disputes and discord. And big migrant communities, and the Sudanese community was one of the bigger communities to arrive relatively newly. And so we did a big project with the local council there to train up, not just, we trained up some of the people in the community who were regarded as leaders, but also more generally as well. And that was a very successful program in terms of how well it matched the sort of traditional Sudanese way that you would resolve a dispute. I couldn't say, to be honest with you, because I suppose because it was one of the first projects that we did, we wanted to make sure we trained people in how we know what to train them on, if you see what I mean. But certainly they have, people have the freedom to adapt what they do in mediation to the circumstances. Although I must say, I think that in some respects, because of what mediation is, which is really facilitating a conversation between other people, in some ways I think it challenges our kind of Westminster system, if you like, of dealing with disputes more so than many other cultures. Another example was in Collingwood, which is an inner city area of Melbourne, and we did some work through the Neighbourhood Justice Centre, which is modelled on a court in New York, which sets the court in amongst a whole lot of other services that are provided. And we have staff located at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre, and we did some work with Vietnamese communities in public housing in Collingwood. But again, we trained them in our fairly standard model of mediation that we train in. But again, it was no difficulty to train people from very different cultures in that general model, giving them the freedom to adapt it where they see fit. Does that answer the...
It'd be good, Julia, to hear your example of working with African communities.
Oh, new. Just pause 1 second. Coming back. There's a little dialogue going on here, so we'll come back.
Our experience, particularly, I'll be very quick, with the African communities, our models here of mediation do not fit. Many of them are looking for more of an arbitrator, not a mediator. They're used to going to, especially people who come from rural areas, they're used to going to the chief, both sides telling their story, and having the chief make a decision. Much more like a court in that sense. And they want to be involved, and I mean, it's a gift. They want to be involved. They want to be active and supporting their communities, but they want to do it within our framework, but our mediation system they don't understand. And even if you try to train them, it's so anathema to what they're used to that it's very difficult. Okay. Thank you.
Neil, Mark McDonald from Transport and Main Roads in Queensland. We deal with compensation settlements, and I'm interested in your figures there for dispute assessment officer settlements. And am I reading your graph correctly, your PowerPoint correctly, about 875 in 10-11 and about 800 and something mediation settlements in 10-11, making about 1,700. That's your 85%?
No, and I'm glad you've asked that. There we go.
That's it.
So the 85% is the mediations. So out of those 835 mediations, we would have settled, I don't know, 85%, whatever that comes out to. But the dispute assessment officer settlements is all settlements. So that 875 is all of those people settled. So of the 1,710, it would be in excess of 1,500 settled. Does that answer that?
That does. And can I ask a bit further? Have you got a rough figure of the? You probably said it, the full-time equivalent staff involved in all those settlements.
Yep. We've got 40 staff on board in Melbourne and across the regions, and then we've got 120 mediators who are sessional. What that works out to in terms of full-time staff is a bit hard to gauge because our average mediation is about 3 hours. That's what we allow. Some will go quite a bit longer, some will go over a couple of sessions, and others will be quite a lot shorter. You know, but you sort of divide 835 by 3, and that would give you how many sessions, and then if you halve that, that would roughly give you what the 1 day sort of amount of time is. And I'm not a good enough mathematician to do that for you right off the bat.
Neil, can I ask a question regarding durability? You know, so we and you know the outcome, successful outcome figures are fantastic. And I know in the family law arena with the early dispute resolution, Federal Magistrate Tom Altobelli had started doing some work around durability, and then he got appointed to the bench, you know, boring, and therefore never finished the work. But I'm just wondering, in Victoria, have you done any work around durability?
We've tried to, but it's so durability, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that although we settled all those cases, how many of the agreements actually stuck and how many ended up, you know, they're fighting the following week. And we're trying to assess that. We've had an evaluation going for the past 6 to 12 months, and we wanted to do some of that work. The difficult thing with trying to get assessments on durability is going back to the parties. What we wanted to do, ideally, was say, okay, you've settled today, we'll come and have a chat to you in 6 months' time and see if, you know, you've still got your agreement. But going back to the people has been much, much harder than we thought it would be, and many people sort of move on or don't want to speak to us, you know, because people hate being rung up. My sense with the intervention order project is because with those, where the agreement actually ends up as an order with terms on it, we would have some idea with those as to whether they come back to court as a breach, as to whether we've been successful, and I think we can postulate that we have a reasonable rate of success there because they don't seem to be coming back as breaches. But we're persevering with it, and we've got another project starting up where we hope to get a random sample of parties that are then able to speak to us some months later.